Listen and do not scroll past this moment lightly, because something is different today. Something is not sitting right in the atmosphere around you, and you felt it, haven't you? That strained heaviness, that subtle unease that you couldn't explain. The way your thoughts have been looping back to something you said, something you did, something you wish you could undo. It didn't seem like a big deal at the time. You brushed it off. You told yourself it would pass. But deep inside, something kept whispering, "Pay attention." That whisper was not your imagination. That whisper was the beginning of a disturbance. Because today, heaven is not quiet. Today, heaven is watching. And Archangel Michael is not calm. There are moments in your life when everything flows, when peace surrounds you, when your spirit feels light and aligned. But then there are moments like this, moments where something shifts without warning, where the air feels heavier, where your spirit feels exposed, where even silence feels louder than noise. This is one of those moments. And if you are here, hearing these words right now, it is not random. It is not coincidence. It is not just another message. You were led here because something in the spiritual realm has already moved in response to something you did. Yes, you. Not to condemn you, not to shame you, but to awaken you. Because what happened was not ignored. Heaven saw it. Every word, every action, every decision made in that moment, even the one you thought no one noticed, it was witnessed. Not by people, not by those around you, but by the unseen realm that governs what comes next in your life. And now, there is movement. Archangel Michael, the protector, the warrior, the one who does not rise without reason, has stepped forward. Not in panic, not in chaos, but in divine urgency. His stillness has been replaced with action. His watchfulness has turned into intervention. Why? Because something you did has created a ripple, and that ripple is beginning to reach tomorrow. You may not see it yet. You may not feel the full weight of it yet. But in the spiritual realm, consequences don't always wait. They build. They gather. They position themselves quietly until the moment they unfold. And tomorrow carries something you need to be ready for. That's why this message found you before it happens. Think about it. How many times have you ignored a feeling only to regret it later? How many times did you say, "I should have listened," when it was already too late? How many times did a small decision turn into something much bigger than you expected? This is not one of those moments you can afford to brush off, because this time you are being warned before the consequence arrives. Archangel Michael is not calm because this is not a small ripple. This is not something that will fade on its own. This is something that requires your awareness, right now, in this very moment. And here's the truth that may shake you. You already know what this is about. There's something in your spirit right now reacting to these words. A memory, a decision, a moment you keep replaying. That is not coincidence. That is confirmation. Heaven is not trying to confuse you. Heaven is trying to wake you up. Because when Archangel Michael moves like this, it means time is short. It means correction is near. It means something is about to unfold. And whether it becomes a consequence or a correction depends on what you do next. So don't dismiss this. Don't delay this. Because the disturbance has already begun. And this is only the beginning of what you need to hear. Type "I am listening" in the comments if you feel this message stirring your spirit. Blessing code 717 is now surrounding you. Now listen carefully, because this is the part most people try to avoid. This is the part where the truth becomes personal. Because what stirred heaven was not random. It was not something distant. It was not something happening in someone else's life. It was something that came directly from you. A decision, a reaction, a moment where you knew better but you chose differently anyway. And even now, as these words are reaching you, there is something inside you tightening, something inside you recognizing exactly what is being revealed. You remember it. You remember the moment. It didn't feel like a major turning point at the time. In fact, it may have felt small, almost insignificant. A quick response, a choice made in emotion, a word spoken without thinking, a situation where you ignored your intuition and went ahead anyway. You told yourself it didn't matter. You convinced yourself it wouldn't have consequences. You moved on as if it would fade into the background of your life. But in the spiritual realm, nothing fades without impact. Heaven does not operate on forgetfulness. Heaven operates on alignment. And in that moment, something shifted. Archangel Michael did not rise because of perfection being broken. He rose because alignment was disrupted. Because what you did, whether knowingly or unknowingly, created an opening that was not meant to be there, an opening that allowed something to move closer to your path that was never supposed to reach you. And this is where most people misunderstand. You are not being watched to be judged. You are being watched because you are being protected. There is a difference. But protection requires awareness, and awareness requires truth. The mistake was not just about what you did, it was about what you ignored. You ignored that inner voice that told you to pause. You ignored that hesitation that came for a reason. You ignored that quiet warning that tried to redirect you before the decision was made. And now, that ignored moment has become the very thing heaven is aggressing. Because when you override your discernment, you step out of covering. And when you step out of covering, consequences begin to form. Not instantly, not loudly, but gradually, silently, strategically. That's why this matters now. Because what was done has already been registered. It has already been acknowledged. And it has already set something into motion. You may not have seen anything change immediately. Life may have continued as normal. Conversations went on. Your routine stayed the same. Nothing obvious seemed different. But that's exactly how these moments work. The shift doesn't always appear in the physical first. It begins in the unseen. And then it unfolds. This is why Archangel Michael is not calm today. Because what was a small moment to you has become a significant point in the spiritual timeline of your life. Not because you are wrong, not because you are lost, but because you are being redirected before that moment multiplies into something bigger. And here is the part you must understand clearly. This is not about punishment. This is about interruption. Heaven is stepping in to interrupt what could continue if left unaddressed. Because mistakes that go unrecognized repeat, and patterns that repeat become consequences. You were never meant to carry what this could turn into. You were never meant to experience what this could lead to. That is why this message has reached you now. Not later, not after the damage, not after the consequence, but right here, in this moment where there is still time to shift. But shifting requires honesty. You cannot correct what you refuse to acknowledge. You cannot realign what you continue to justify. And you cannot move forward while pretending nothing happened. That moment, the one coming to your mind right now, that is where the shift begins. Not tomorrow. Not later. Now. Because heaven has already seen it. Heaven has already responded. And Archangel Michael is already standing in position, not to condemn you, but to make sure that what could follow you stops here. This is your awareness. This is your confirmation. This is your moment to recognize that even the smallest decision can echo louder than expected, and that echo is what heaven is addressing right now. So do not look away from it. Do not minimize it. Do not delay what you already feel in your spirit. Because the mistake has been seen, but it has also been revealed to you for a reason. And what you do with that revelation will determine what follows you next. Type "I accept the truth" in the comments if you are ready to face this moment. Blessing code 909 is now activating clarity around you. You need to understand something right now, and you need to understand it deeply. This is not just a message. This is timing. This is precision. This is intervention happening at the exact moment before something crosses a line you cannot easily reverse. Because what makes this warning urgent is not fear, it is proximity. What has been set in motion is no longer distant. It is no longer forming. It is no longer in the early stages. It is close. Close enough that if nothing changes, you will begin to feel the effects sooner than you expect. Not someday, not in the distant future, but tomorrow, exactly as you were warned. And that is why Archangel Michael is not calm. Because heaven does not raise urgency unless time is involved. Heaven does not interrupt your path unless something is approaching your path. And right now something is approaching. You may be wondering, if it was just one mistake, why does it matter this much? But that question comes from a human perspective. In the spiritual realm, it is not just about the action itself, it is about the access that action created. One mode can open a door. One decision can create permission. One emotional reaction can align you with something you were never meant to carry. And once that alignment is created, it begins to move. Quietly. Unseen. But intentionally. That is why this warning could not wait. Because if it waited, the unfolding would already begin. Think about the times in your life when things suddenly shifted overnight. When you woke up and something felt different. When situations changed faster than you could process. When consequences seemed to arrive all at once, and you wondered how everything escalated so quickly. Those moments never begin in the moment you see them. They begin before. They build before. They position themselves before. And then they appear. That is exactly where you are right now. You are not at the outcome. You are at the edge of it. And that edge is where intervention matters most. Because once something fully unfolds, it is no longer a warning. It becomes a reality you must walk through. And heaven is trying to prevent that. Not by controlling you, but by alerting you. There is a difference. You still have control over your response. You still have control over your awareness. You still have control over what you choose to do next. But that control only exists because you are hearing this now before tomorrow arrives. That is what makes this moment critical. You are standing in a space where two paths exist at the same time. One path continues forward without acknowledgement, without correction, without awareness. And that path leads directly into consequences that begin to unfold exactly as they have already started forming. The other path pauses, reflects, realigns, and interrupts what was about to happen. But you cannot walk both paths. You must choose. And the urgency you feel right now, that pressure, that pull, that sense that you should not ignore this, that is not emotion. That is spiritual timing pressing against your awareness. Because time is moving whether you respond or not. Tomorrow is coming whether you act or not. And what arrives with tomorrow will be shaped by what you do today. This is why ignoring this warning is not neutral. Ignoring is also a decision. Silence is also a response. Delay is also a choice. And every choice carries a direction. Archangel Michael is not calm because he sees both directions clearly. He sees what unfolds if you dismiss this. He sees what unfolds if you respond to this. And right now, he is standing in that space between the two, urging you to recognize where you are. Because once you cross into tomorrow, the window for easy correction becomes narrower. Not impossible. Will have you. More complex. More difficult to reverse. That is why this message carries urgency, not to pressure you but to position you. To wake you up before something takes form in your reality. To give you awareness before you are forced to deal with consequences. To allow you to shift while shifting is still simple. And here is the truth that you must not ignore. You were not warned this clearly by accident. Out of all moments, this one reached you. Out of all possibility, this message found you. That means something. That means you were meant to have this awareness before it was too late. So do not treat this lightly. Do not treat this casually. Because urgency is not created without reason. Urgency is created when something is already in motion and time is running out to change its direction. And right now you are still within that time. But type I will not ignore this in the comments if you choose awareness over delay. Lesson code 111 is now activating divine timing in your favor. As you feel this urgency settle into your spirit, understand this: every moment like this is not just meant for you alone. There are others still walking toward consequences without warning, still unaware of what heaven is trying to reveal. When you choose to support this mission through Super Thanks or the PayPal link in the description, you are planting a seed that becomes light in someone else's darkness, a warning in someone else's confusion, a breakthrough in someone else's delay. The word says, "Give, and it shall be given unto you." And this is not just a verse. It is a living promise speaking directly into your life right now. I invite you to act in this moment, not out of obligation, but out of divine alignment, because your giving becomes a channel through which heaven reaches more souls. This is your moment to move with purpose, to sow with intention, to become part of something greater than yourself. Do not hesitate when your spirit is being stirred. Step forward and release your seed, because what you give today will return to you multiplied in ways you cannot yet see. Now you must prepare yourself, because what comes next is not comfortable, but it is necessary. You have already been told that something is approaching, but now you need to understand what that actually means. Because consequences are not always loud. They are not always immediate disasters. They are not always obvious at first glance. In fact, the most dangerous consequences are the ones that arrive quietly, the ones that blend into your normal life until you suddenly realize something is off. Something has shifted. Something is no longer aligned the way it used to be. That is how this begins. The consequence forming from your recent mistake is not chaos, it is disruption. Subtle at first, but intentional. It may show up as confusion where you once had clarity. Decisions that suddenly feel harder than they should. Conversations that feel tense without explanation. Doors that hesitate before opening. Opportunities that feel delayed. Energy that feels heavier. Peace that feels slightly out of reach. You may wake up tomorrow and not immediately recognize it. Everything may look the same on the outside. The same environment. The same people. The same routine. But internally something will feel different. And that difference is where the consequence begins. Because when alignment is disrupted, your flow is affected. And when your flow is affected, everything connected to that flow begins to shift. This is not punishment. This is cause and effect in the spiritual realm. What was open begins to influence. What was allowed begins to move. What was ignored begins to speak. And tomorrow it begins to take form. You may notice it in your thoughts first. A sense of doubt that was not there before. overthinking situations that used to be simple, questioning things that never needed to be questioned, feeling unsettled without knowing why. Then it may move into your interactions. Small misunderstandings, words being taken the wrong way, reactions that feel stronger than they should be, situations escalating faster than expected, and if left unaddressed it continues. It reaches your decisions, your timing, your opportunities. Because once a disruption is allowed to remain, it expands. That is what Archangel Michael is trying to prevent. Not the existence of consequences, but the continuation of them. Because the longer something is allowed to operate unchecked, the deeper it roots itself into your reality. And here is where you must be honest with yourself. You have experienced moments like this before. Moments where something small turned into something much bigger. Moments where you said, "It started with something so simple, how did it become this?" That is not coincidence. That is pattern. And patterns repeat when awareness is ignored. Right now, you are being given awareness before the pattern repeats again, before the disruption settles, before the consequence strengthens, before tomorrow fully unfolds. Because once it unfolds, it becomes something you must work through instead of something you can easily stop. That is the difference between warning and consequence. A warning gives you power. A consequence requires recovery. And you are still in the space of power, but only if you act within it. The spiritual consequence approaching you is not here to destroy you, but it will disturb you if you ignore it. It will pull at your peace. It will test your focus. It will challenge your clarity. And most importantly, it will try to distract you from recognizing where it came from. Because once you lose awareness of the source, you lose control over the solution. That is why this moment matters so much. Because recognizing the source allows you to stop the effect. Ignoring the source allows the effect to grow. And right now, heaven is placing the source directly in front of you. Not to overwhelm you, not to accuse you, but to give you the chance to stop what is forming before it fully arrives. Archangel Michael is not calm because he sees how quickly this can escalate if left untouched. He sees how something small can multiply. He sees how one moment can influence many others. He sees how tomorrow can carry something that could have been avoided today. And he is standing between that escalation and your awareness, urging you to see clearly. Because once you see clearly, you can respond differently. And once you respond differently, the outcome changes. But if you ignore this, if you continue as if nothing needs to be addressed, if you move forward without correction, then what is approaching will not stop. It will unfold, step by step, moment by moment, until you are forced to deal with it at a deeper level. And that is what this message is trying to prevent. So do not wait until you feel it. Do not wait until it becomes obvious. Do not wait until tomorrow confirms what you are being told today. Because by then the consequence will already be in motion. Right now, you still have the ability to interrupt it. Right now, you still have the clarity to recognize it. Right now, you still have the opportunity to shift it. But that window is closing. And what you do in this moment will determine whether tomorrow carries disruption or correction. Type "I choose correction" in the comments if you are ready to stop what is forming. Blessing code 222 is now sealing your path with protection. You need to hear this clearly, because this is where everything shifts from what you can understand to what you must discern. The battle has already started. Not tomorrow. Not later. Now. Even as you are listening to these words, something is already moving around you. Something is already positioning itself in response to the opening that was created. And the reason you may not fully recognize it yet is because this battle is not physical. It is spiritual. It is subtle. It is strategic. and it does not announce itself loudly. This is not the kind of battle where you see immediate chaos or obvious disruption. This is the kind of battle that begins in your thoughts, in your emotions, in your environment. It begins in places that seem normal, familiar, even harmless, until you realize that something is influencing you in a way that was not there before. That is how spiritual battles operate. They don't start with destruction. They start with influence. Right now, there is a movement happening in the unseen realm concerning you. The moment that alignment was disrupted, it created a tension. And a tension in the spiritual realm always leads to activity. What was once stable has now become a point of focus. And when something becomes a point of focus, it becomes a battleground. You may already feel it. That unusual restlessness. That slight irritation that appears without reason. A sudden emotional shift that doesn't match your situation. That feeling of being pulled in different directions mentally. Those are not random. Those are signs. Because battles do not begin when things fall apart. They begin when something tries to gain control. Control over your thoughts. Control over your reactions. Control over your decisions. And if control is gained in those areas, everything else follows. That is why this moment is so critical. Because if you do not recognize that a battle is already taking place, you will respond as if nothing is happening. You will treat everything as normal. You will dismiss the subtle changes. And in doing so, you will unknowingly allow the influence to grow stronger. But once you recognize it, everything changes. Because awareness breaks passive participation. And right now, Archangel Michael is not just observing this battle. He is engaged in it. He is standing between you and what is trying to gain influence over your life. He is not reacting out of anger. He is acting out of protection. But protection is not automatic when awareness is ignored. Protection works with alignment. And alignment requires you to be present. To be alert. To be aware of what is happening beneath the surface. Because this is not just about what you see. This is about what you don't see. There are forces that thrive on distraction. Forces that rely on you staying unaware. Forces that operate best when you assume everything is fine. Because the moment you begin to question what you feel, the moment you begin to recognize that something is off, you disrupt their ability to operate unnoticed. That is why this message is not just a warning. It is a revelation. It is revealing to you that the tension you feel is not random. The heaviness you sense is not meaningless. The shift you cannot explain is not imaginary. It is all connected. It is all part of a battle that has already begun. And here is what you must understand. This battle is not about defeating you. It is about influencing you. Because if your thoughts can be influenced, your actions will follow. If your emotions can be influenced, your reactions will follow. If your focus can be influenced, your direction will follow. That is the strategy. That is the design. And that is why Archangel Michael is not calm. Because he sees the strategy clearly. He sees how quickly influence can turn into action. He sees how easily distraction can turn into delay. He sees how a lack of awareness can turn into a series of decisions that lead you further away from alignment. And he is stepping in now before that chain continues. But here is the part that depends on you. You must not ignore what you feel. You must not dismiss what is happening internally. You must not continue as if everything is normal when something inside you knows that it is not. Because the moment you ignore those signals, you step out of awareness. And when you step out of awareness, you step into vulnerability. This is not the time to be passive. This is not the time to be distracted. This is the time to be intentional with your thoughts, your words, your actions. Because every choice you make right now is either strengthening your alignment or feeding the influence that is trying to pull you away from it. And the battle will continue either way. The only difference is whether you are aware of it or not. So stand still for a moment. Listen to what your spirit is telling you. Pay attention to what feels different, because that is where the battle is most active, and that is exactly where your awareness is needed. Archangel Michael is already standing in position. The question is, will you stand in awareness with him, or will you continue unaware of what is already unfolding? Type "I am aware" in the comments if you are ready to stand in clarity. Blessing code 333 is now strengthening your spiritual awareness. Now you must see this clearly, because what you are facing is not random movement. It is strategy. There is a design behind what is happening. There is intention behind what you are feeling. And there is a reason why everything seems to be aligning in a way that feels slightly off, slightly pressured, slightly out of place. Because when a mistake creates an opening, it does not stay empty. Something always tries to enter. That is the nature of the spiritual realm. It does not leave gaps unattended. And right now, there is a strategy forming around that opening you created. Not to overwhelm you immediately, not to expose itself too quickly, but to work gradually, to move quietly, to influence without being detected. That is how it succeeds. Not through force, but through subtlety. The enemy's strategy is not to attack you where you are strongest. It is to approach you where you are unaware. And right now, that approach is already in motion. You may notice it in the smallest ways. Thoughts that do not feel like your own, yet they linger. Doubts that appear suddenly, without reason. Emotions that rise without a clear cause. A shift in your patience, your focus, your clarity. These are not coincidences. These are entry points being tested. Because the goal is not immediate damage. The goal is gradual influence. To slowly move you out of alignment. To slowly disconnect you from your awareness. To slowly lead you into decisions that feel normal in the moment but carry consequences later. That is the strategy. And it works best when you do not recognize it. Because once you recognize it, you resist it. But if you do not recognize it, you cooperate with it without realizing. That is why this moment matters so much. Because you are being shown the strategy before it fully unfolds. You are being given insight into something that most people only understand after it has already affected them. The enemy does not need to create chaos immediately. He only needs to shift your direction slightly. A small distraction, a small delay, a small compromise. Because a small shift in direction, over time, leads to a completely different destination. That is what is at stake. Not just what happens tomorrow, but where tomorrow leads you. And this is why your thoughts are the first target. Because if your thinking changes, your actions will follow. If your perception changes, your decisions will follow. If your focus changes, your path will follow. That is the chain. And that chain has already begun to form. You may have already felt moments where you almost reacted differently than you normally would. Moments where you almost said something you would not usually say. Moments where you felt pulled toward something you knew was not aligned with who you are becoming. Those are not random impulses. Those are strategic influences. Testing your response. Measuring your awareness. Seeing how far they can move without being noticed. And if you remain unaware, they move further. That is how the strategy expands. Not all at once, but step by step. Layer by layer, until what started as influence becomes habit, and what becomes habit shapes your reality. This is why Archangel Michael is not calm, because he sees the full strategy. He sees where it starts. He sees where it leads. And he knows that if it is not interrupted now, it will continue to unfold beyond what you expect. But here is what you must hold on to. The strategy only works if you remain passive. It only succeeds if you remain unaware. It only grows if you do not challenge it. Because influence loses power when it is exposed. And right now it is being exposed to you. That means you are not behind. That means you are not trapped. That means you are not powerless. You are being positioned to stop this before it becomes something bigger. But stopping it requires intention. You must become aware of your thoughts. You must question what feels off. You must recognize when something does not align with your true direction. Because not every thought is yours. Not every impulse is yours. Not every emotion is yours. Some are placed. Some are suggested. Some are introduced to see if you will accept them. And the moment you accept them, they begin to shape you. That is why this is a battle of awareness. A battle of perception. A battle of alignment. Not a battle of strength. Because you do not need to fight harder. You need to see clearer. And when you see clearly, you respond differently. You choose differently. You move differently. And that breaks the strategy. Archangel Michael is already standing in defense. But your awareness activates that defense fully. Your recognition strengthens your position. Your clarity disrupts what is trying to influence you. So do not ignore what you are now seeing. Do not dismiss what is being revealed. Because once you understand the strategy, you are no longer vulnerable to it. You are prepared. You are aware. And you are capable of stopping it before it leads you somewhere you were never meant to go. The strategy hath been revealed. Now the response is yours. Type "I see the strategy" in the comments if you are ready to break the influence. Blessing code 444 is now activating divine protection over your mind and decisions. Now listen closely, because everything you have heard so far leads to this moment. You are not alone in this. And you were never meant to handle this on your own. Because while a strategy has been forming, while influence has been attempting to move, while a battle has already begun, there has also been something else happening at the same time. Intervention. Not passive observation. Not distant watching. Active intervention. Archangel Michael has not been standing still. He has not been waiting without action. He has already stepped in. And the reason he is not calm is not because you are in danger beyond repair. It is because he is actively working to stop something before it reaches you fully. You must understand this clearly. Intervention does not always look like protection in the way you expect. Sometimes it looks like interruption. Sometimes it looks like discomfort. Sometimes it looks like things not going the way you plan. Because when something needs to be stopped, the path must be adjusted. And right now, adjustments are already happening around you. You may have already noticed it. Plans that suddenly shifted. Conversations that didn't go the way you expected. Moments where something felt blocked or delayed. Situations where you felt resistance without understanding why. Those are not obstacles. Those are interventions. Because what you may see as inconvenience is actually protection. What you may feel as delay is actually redirection. What you may interpret as something going wrong is something being stopped before it goes further. That is how Archangel Michael operates. He does not always remove the battle. He positions you so the battle does not consume you. And right now, he is standing between you and what is trying to move closer. But here is what you must understand. Intervention requires cooperation. It is not forced upon you. It works with you. Which means if you continue to move in the same direction without awareness, you can move yourself back into what is being blocked. You can step past protection without realizing it. That is why this moment is so important. Because now that you are aware, you can align with the intervention instead of resisting it. You can recognize what is being redirected instead of pushing against it. You can see what is being blocked instead of trying to force it open. Archangel Michael is not just protecting you from something external. He is also protecting you from repeating what created the opening in the first place. Because if the same pattern continues, the same outcome will follow. And intervention is not just about stopping what is coming. It is about correcting what has already happened. That is why you may feel a shift inside you right now. A pull to slow down. A sense that you need to pause. A feeling that you should not move forward the way you were planning. That is not hesitation. That is guidance. Because intervention speaks quietly. It does not force. It nudges. It redirects. It creates space for you to choose differently. And the more you listen to that, the stronger the protection becomes. But if you ignore it, if you push through it, if you continue as if nothing needs to change, you move against the very protection that is trying to help you. That is why Archangel Michael is not calm. Because he is actively holding back something that is trying to advance. He is actively redirecting paths that would lead you into deeper consequences. He is actively placing boundaries around you that you may not even see. But those boundaries only hold if you respect them. If you try to force what is being blocked, you weaken the protection. If you ignore what is being redirected, you step outside of alignment. And that is when consequences begin to move more freely. So this is your moment to align. Not just to listen, but to respond. To recognize where you need to pause. To recognize where you need to step back. To recognize where you need to change direction. Because intervention is already in place. Protection is already active. But it is working with your awareness, not against your choices. And here is the truth that should bring you clarity. If Archangel Michael is intervening this strongly, it means you are worth protecting at this level. It means your path matters. It means what is ahead of you is important enough that it cannot be allowed to be disrupted. That is why the response is so immediate. That is why the urgency is so real. Because something valuable is being guarded. Something meaningful is being preserved. Something important is being kept from being altered by what was set in motion. And you are at the center of it. So do not resist what feels like interruption. Do not fight what feels like delay. Do not ignore what feels like redirection. Because those are the very signs that intervention is working. And the more you align with it, the more you step into protection instead of stepping away from it. Archangel Michael is already standing in position. The protection is already active. The intervention is already happening. Now the question is, will you align with it or will you unknowingly move against it? Type "I align with protection" in the comments if you are ready to move with divine intervention. Blessing code 555 is now surrounding your path with guidance and defense. Now everything comes down to this moment. Not tomorrow. Not later. Now. Because everything that has been revealed to you, the mistake, the warning, the strategy, the battle, the intervention, all of it leads to one single point of decision. And that decision cannot be avoided. It cannot be delayed without consequence. It cannot be ignored without direction. You must choose. Right now, you are standing between two paths that are both real, both active, and both moving forward at the same time. One path continues exactly as you were before this message. No change. No adjustment. No acknowledgement. Just movement without awareness. And that path will carry forward everything that has already been set in motion. It will allow the consequence to unfold. It will allow the influence to grow. It will allow the strategy to complete itself step by step. The other path requires something different. It requires you to stop, to reflect, to recognize, to realign. It requires you to accept that something needs to change, even if that change feels uncomfortable, even if it challenges your habits, even if it forces you to step back from something you were already moving toward. And this is where many people struggle, because choosing alignment is not always easy. It requires humility. It requires honesty. It requires you to admit that a moment, a decision, or an action was not in your highest awareness. But that admission is not weakness, it is power. Because the moment you acknowledge something, you take control over it. And control is what determines direction. Right now, you still have control. But control does not remain forever if it is not used. Because if you do not make a conscious choice, the situation will choose for you. And that choice will always follow the path that is already in motion. That is why this moment feels intense. That is why you feel that internal pressure. That is why something inside you is telling you not to ignore this. Because you are being asked to decide before the outcome decides for you. And this is where your awareness becomes action. You already know what needs to shift. You already feel what needs to be corrected. You already sense what you should not continue doing. That clarity is not confusion. That clarity is direction. But direction only matters if you follow it. If you feel that you need to step back, then step back. If you feel that you need to correct something, then correct it. If you feel that you need to pause before moving forward, then pause. Because these small adjustments are not small in the spiritual realm. They are powerful. They interrupt patterns. They close openings. They restore alignment. And most importantly, they change outcomes. Archangel Michael is not asking you to be perfect. He is asking you to be aware. He is asking you to respond. He is asking you to choose alignment while it is still within your reach. Because once tomorrow arrives, the same choice may not feel as simple. It may feel heavier, more complicated, more difficult to reverse. That is why the decision belongs to today. And here is the truth that you must hold on to. Whatever you choose right now will move with you into tomorrow. If you choose awareness, clarity will move with you. If you choose Harayan will move with you. If you choose alignment, peace will move with you. But if you choose to ignore this, if you choose to continue without change, if you choose to dismiss what you feel in your spirit, then what has already been set in motion will move with you instead. That is the weight of this moment. Not to pressure you, but to show you the reality of choice. Because choice is not just about what you do. It is about what follows you after you do it. And right now what follows you is still within your control. So do not delay. Do not hesitate. Do not convince yourself that this can wait. Because waiting is not neutral. Waiting is movement in the wrong direction. And you have been given too much awareness to move blindly now. This is your moment to step into alignment, to choose differently, to respond intentionally, to shift what was about to follow you. Archangel Michael is already standing with you. The intervention is already active. The protection is already in place. Now the final step belongs to you. Choose. Because what you choose right now will echo into tomorrow. Type "I choose alignment" in the comments if you are ready to take control of your direction. Blessing code 666 is now activating decisive clarity in your life. As you stand in this moment of decision, understand that your choice does not only shape your path, it can become light for others still walking in darkness. When you release your support through Super Thanks or the PayPal link in the description, you are sowing a seed that becomes revelation in someone else's confusion, clarity in someone else's chaos, and warning in someone else's delay. The word declares, "Those who sow in faith will reap in abundance," and this is your moment to act on that living promise. I feel led to say this clearly. I am stepping into obedience, and I will not miss this moment. Let that be your declaration as well. Your giving is not a transaction. It is a prophetic act that opens doors, shifts atmospheres, and extends heaven's reach beyond what you can see. Do not hold back when your spirit is being stirred to move. Step forward now, release your seed, and become part of the divine work that is awakening souls across the world. Now pause for a moment, because what you are about to realize may change the way you see everything that has been happening around you. This warning did not begin today. It did not suddenly appear out of nowhere. It has been building. It has been forming. It has been trying to reach you long before this moment. You have already been receiving signs. Subtle at first, easy to dismiss, easy to overlook. But now, when you look back, they begin to make sense. Think about the recent days or even weeks. There were moments where something felt off, but you could not explain it. A situation that didn't sit right in your spirit. A conversation that felt slightly uncomfortable, even if the words seemed normal. A decision that felt rushed, even when there was no reason to rush. Those were not random feelings. Those were signals. There were also moments where you felt a strong urge to pause, but you didn't. A quiet inner voice that told you to wait, to think, to reconsider. But something in you chose to move forward anyway. Not out of rebellion, but out of habit. Out of medo. Out of assuming that everything would be fine. That was a sign. You may have even noticed repetition. Seeing the same patterns again. Facing similar situations that felt familiar. Hearing the same type of message in different ways. Feeling like something was trying to get your attention, but you couldn't quite identify what it was. That repetition was not coincidence. It was persistence. Because when a message is not received the first time, it is sent again and again, until it is finally recognized. You may have also experienced moments of unusual stillness. Times where everything seemed to slow down for no clear reason. Delays that felt inconvenient. Interruptions that didn't make sense. Situations where something you planned simply did not move forward the way you expected. Those were not setbacks. Those were pauses. Intentional pauses. Placed in your path to give you time to notice what you were about to overlook. But when those pauses are ignored, the message becomes stronger. And that is where you are now. You are no longer in the stage of subtle signs. You are in the stage of clear warning. Because everything that was gently trying to reach you is now being directly revealed to you. And here is what makes this even more important. You felt these signs. You noticed them. Even if you didn't fully understand them, something inside you recognized that they were different from your usual experience. That recognition is not imagination. That recognition is your awareness trying to guide you. Because awareness always speaks before consequences arrive. It always gives you a chance to adjust before something unfolds. But awareness is quiet. It does not force itself. It does not demand attention. It simply presents itself and waits for you to respond. And when it is ignored, the next stage begins. The stage where things become more obvious, more direct, more undeniable. That is the stage you are in right now. You are no longer being nudged. You are being shown. Clearly. Directly. Without confusion. And when clarity arrives like this, it means the time for subtlety has passed. It means the moment for decision has arrived. Because the signs you were receiving before were preparing you for this moment. Preparing you to recognize what is happening now. preparing you to understand that this is not random, this is a continuation of something that has been trying to reach you all along. And now, you have the full picture. You can see how the small moments connect. You can see how the feelings, the pauses, the repetitions, the discomfort all point to the same thing. They were leading you here. To awareness. To recognition. To the moment where you can no longer say, I didn't know. Because now you do. And that changes everything. Because once you know, you are responsible for what you do next. Not in a heavy way, but in a powerful way. Because knowledge gives you the ability to choose differently, to respond differently, to move differently. And that is exactly why these signs were sent to you in the first place. Not to confuse you, not to overwhelm you, but to prepare you, so that when this moment arrived you would be ready to understand it, ready to accept it, ready to act on it. And now, you are here, with clarity, with awareness, with everything you need to recognize what is happening. So do not dismiss the past signs anymore. Do not overlook what you felt. Do not ignore what tried to reach you. Because those signs were not mistakes. They were guidance. And that guidance has now led you to this exact moment where everything becomes clear. What you do with that clarity is what determines what happens next. Type I recognize the signs in the comments if you are ready to trust your awareness. Blessing code 777 is now activating deeper discernment within you. Now that you see it, now that you feel it, now that everything has been revealed to you in a way you cannot ignore, the question becomes simple, but powerful. What do you do next? Because awareness alone is not enough. Recognition alone does not stop what is already in motion. There must be a response. There must be a shift. There must be a realignment. And this is where everything begins to change, not outside of you first, but within you. Realignment does not start with action. It starts with stillness. You must pause, not just physically, but mentally, emotionally, spiritually. Because as long as you continue moving at the same pace, with the same mindset, with the same internal noise, you will not clearly see what needs to be corrected. So the first step is to become still, to step out of reaction, to step out of urgency, to step out of distraction, and to simply observe. Observe your thoughts. Observe your emotions. Observe what feels out of place. Because clarity does not come when you are rushing. Clarity comes when you allow yourself to see without pressure. And once you become still, the next step becomes clear. You must acknowledge, not partially, not in a way that justifies, but fully. You must be honest about the moment that created the shift. You must recognize where you ignored your awareness, where you acted too quickly, where you allowed something to move forward that should have been paused. Because without acknowledgement there is nothing to correct, and without correction nothing changes. But the moment you acknowledge something honestly, you take control over it. You bring it out of the unseen into your awareness. And once it is in your awareness, it can no longer operate without your consent. That is where realignment begins. Then comes the most important part. You must choose differently. Not in a big, dramatic way, but in a precise, intentional way. If you feel that you move it too quickly, slow down. If you feel that you said something you should not have, correct it. If you feel that you are continuing in a direction that does not feel right, step back. These are not small actions. These are powerful interruptions to what was already forming. Because realignment is not about doing everything differently. It is about correcting the point where things shifted. And when that point is corrected, everything connected to it begins to adjust. But here is where many people fail. They recognize the need for change, but they delay it. They tell themselves they will fix it later. They convince themselves that it is not urgent. They wait for a more convenient time. But realignment loses power when it is delayed. Because the longer you wait, the more what is already in motion continues to move forward. And the more it moves forward, the more difficult it becomes to stop. That is why this moment is so critical. Because right now realignment is still simple. It is still within your control. It is still something you can do without resistance. But that window does not stay open forever. That is why Archangel Michael brought this to you now. Not after the consequence. Not after the disruption. But before it fully arrives. So that you can realign while realignment is still light. While it is still easy. While it is still within your immediate reach. And here is the truth that you must not ignore. Realignment is not about perfection. It is about direction. It is about choosing to move back into alignment with what you already know is right. Even if that choice feels uncomfortable. Even if it requires you to admit something. Even if it requires you to change course. Because the discomfort is temporary. But the outcome of realignment is lasting. And once you realign, something shifts immediately. Not necessarily in your external world right away, but within you. Your clarity returns. Your peace begins to restore. Your direction becomes stable again. Because you are no longer moving against your awareness. You are moving with it. And when you move with your awareness, protection strengthens. Intervention aligns. The strategy loses influence. And what was about to unfold begins to lose its momentum. That is the power of realignment. It does not just fix the moment. It changes what was about to follow that moment. So do not delay this. Do not wait for tomorrow. Do not assume you have more time. Because the opportunity you have right now is exactly what you need. Everything hath been revealed. Everything has been placed in your awareness. Now the only thing left is your response. Realign. While you still can. Type "I realign" now in the comments if you are ready to shift your direction. Blessing code 888 is now restoring balance and clarity within you. Now listen carefully, because this is where everything you have heard begins to take form. Tomorrow is not neutral. It is not just another day waiting to unfold. It is already shaped, already influenced, already carrying the weight of what has been set in motion today. And whether that weight becomes a burden or a breakthrough depends entirely on what you have chosen in this moment. Because tomorrow is not starting from zero. It is continuing from now. Everything you feel, everything you recognize, everything you either correct or ignore is already moving forward into the next day. And that means tomorrow will not arrive empty. It will arrive carrying the result of your awareness with the result of your delay. If you have chosen to realign, something powerful will happen. Not necessarily in a loud or dramatic way, but in a precise and noticeable shift. You will wake up with a different clarity. The heaviness you felt will begin to lift. The confusion that was forming will start to dissolve. Situations that felt uncertain will begin to stabilize. Because when you realign, you interrupt what was about to unfold. You change the direction of the momentum. You close the opening that was created. And once that opening is closed, what was trying to move through it can no longer continue in the same way. That is the quiet miracle of alignment. It does not always announce itself loudly, but it changes everything beneath the surface. And those changes begin to show themselves in your day, in your thoughts, in your interactions, in your decisions. You will notice that what could have gone wrong simply does not. What could have escalated remains calm. What could have confused you becomes clear. Because the shift has already happened internally, and now it begins to reflect externally. But if you have chosen to ignore this moment, if you have decided that nothing needs to change, if you continue forward without acknowledging what was revealed to you, then tomorrow will carry something very different. Not immediate chaos, not instant breakdown, but a continuation of the disruption that has already begun. You may wake up feeling unsettled without knowing why. You may find yourself overthinking situations that should feel simple. You may experience small frustrations that build throughout the day. You may notice that things do not flow the way they usually do, that your patience is tested more easily, that your clarity feels slightly out of reach, and you may not immediately connect it to this moment, but it will be connected, because what you ignore today follows you into tomorrow. That is the nature of cause and effect in the spiritual realm, and does not disappear. It moves forward, and it unfolds, step by step, with a moment, until it either completes its cycle or is interrupted. That is why this moment is so powerful, because you are standing at the exact point where tomorrow is still flexible, where it can still be influenced, where it can still be shaped by what you choose right now. Archangel Michael is not calm because he sees both versions of tomorrow clearly. He sees the version where you align and everything begins to correct itself. He sees the version where you ignore and everything continues to shift further out of alignment. And he knows how small the difference is between those two outcomes. A single decision, a single moment of awareness, a single act of correction. That is all it takes to change what tomorrow carries. But that decision must be made now, not after you wake up, not after you feel the effects, not after things begin to unfold, because by then the shift will already be in motion, and while it can still be corrected, it will require more effort, more awareness, more time. Right now it is simple. Right now it is within your immediate control. Right now it is a choice that can be made without resistance. And that is why this message has reached you before tomorrow arrives. So that you do not walk into it unprepared. So that you do not experience what could have been avoided. So that you step into it with awareness instead of reaction. Because tomorrow is coming. That is certain. But what tomorrow carries is still up to you. Type "I claim a shifted tomorrow" in the comments if you are choosing alignment over consequence. Blessing code 999 is now sealing your next 24 hours with clarity and protection. This is it. This is the moment everything has been leading to. Not the beginning, not the middle, but the point where everything must come together in one clear, undeniable truth. You cannot walk away from this unchanged. You cannot pretend you did not hear this. You cannot return to the same mindset, the same pace, the same direction as if nothing has been revealed to you. Because something has shifted, not just around you but within you. And once something shifts within you, it demands a response. You have been shown the mistake. You have been warned about the consequence. You have been made aware of the battle. You have seen the strategy. You have felt the intervention. You have recognized the signs. You have been given the path to realign. And you now understand what tomorrow carries. There is nothing left unclear. There is nothing left hidden. There is nothing left for you to question. This is no longer about information. This is about action. Because knowing without acting changes nothing. Hearing without responding moves nothing. Understanding without choosing shifts nothing. And you were not brought here to remain the same. You were brought here to stand in awareness, to stand in clarity, to stand in alignment with what you now know. Because standing is not passive. Standing is a decision. It is the moment you refuse to move in the wrong direction any longer. It is the moment you choose to hold your ground instead of drifting. It is the moment you say, I see what is happening and I will not allow it to continue. That is where everything changes. Not in fear, not in pressure, but in authority. Because you have authority over your choices, authority over your direction, authority over what you allow to continue and what you decide to stop. And right now you are being asked to use that authority. Not tomorrow, not later. Now, Archangel Michael is still standing, still watching, still guarding. But now he is also waiting to see what you will do with everything that has been placed in front of you. Because protection surrounds you but alignment activates it fully. Guidance is given to you but action completes it. And awareness has reached you but your response determines its power. So do not leave this moment empty. Do not let this pass as just another message. Do not return to distraction, to routine, to ignoring what you now feel so clearly. Because this was not meant to be temporary. This was meant to be a turning point. A moment where something inside you shifts permanently. Where you no longer move blindly. Where you no longer ignore your awareness. Where you no longer allow small moments to grow into larger consequences. This is where you rise into clarity. Where you step into alignment. Where you move forward with intention instead of reaction. And when you do that, everything changes. Not all at once. Not instantly in every area. But in direction. In energy. In awareness. In the way you move through your life from this moment forward. That is the true outcome of this message. Not fear. Not pressure. But transformation. Because you were warned so you could be prepared. You were shown so you could respond. You were guided so you could choose differently. And now the choice is complete. The moment is here. The path is clear. Stand. Listen. And act. Because what you do right now does not just affect tomorrow. It shapes everything that follows after it. Type "I stand in alignment" in the comments if you are choosing to act on this message. Blessing code 1212 is now sealing your path with strength, clarity, and divine protection. As you stand in this final moment of clarity, understand that your alignment does not end with you. It becomes a ripple that reaches souls still lost in confusion. Every time you support this mission through super thanks with a PayPal link in the description, you are sowing into a harvest of awakening, placing light into places where darkness still speaks louder than truth. The word declares, whoever brings light to others will have light shine upon their own path, and this is not just written. It is alive and speaking over you right now. I declare this with you. I will not hold back when heaven calls me to act. Let that be your moment of obedience. Your giving is not a donation. It is a prophetic seed that unlocks doors, multiplies impact, and carries this message to those who are still waiting for their warning. Do not delay when your spirit is being stirred. Step forward now, release your seed, and become part of the divine movement that is transforming lives beyond what your eyes can see.